Thank you, Jessica. So we'll move into our slides. I am very honored to be here as the Chief Administrative Officer for the East Valley SELPA. I am Dr. Patty Metheny. I have with me today representatives from all of our districts who are going to share with you about our journey. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to the SIP team, particularly the leadership team. We used to include Kristen Brooks and Kevin Schaefer and Carmen Hopkins, who have helped us along on this journey and have funded the journey. So it's important to understand that without this grant, we couldn't do this work, both at the SELPA level and in our districts. So we're very happy to be here with you today to share about our journey and hopefully inspire you to walk alongside us in a similar journey. So as we do so, I want to tell you a little bit about the East Valley SELPA. So the East Valley SELPA is in San Bernardino County. We're in the eastern portion of San Bernardino County. We have approximately 11,200 students with disabilities. We are composed of 5 school districts: Colton Joint Unified, Redlands Unified, Rialto Unified, Rim of the World Unified, and Yucaipa-Calimesa Joint Unified. You're going to hear from different representatives from all of those districts today. We proudly work together, and I think what you're going to take from this presentation is that it's working together. We have been able to move the needle on inclusion and to truly change hearts and minds. So let us jump into what that looks like and how we've done that here. So we began by being a SIP grant recipient back in 2021 actually. And of course, that was the year of COVID. And so our work began by meeting virtually, somewhat as we're doing today to present to you. We decided that how we would do this at a SELPA level is probably very different than what happens at the individual district level. And so at the SELPA level, we brought together some of our leaders from each of the districts, and that included general education as well as special education leaders, to understand where we were currently at with inclusive practices, to look at our data and those practices, as well as to take a dive into understanding where we wanted to go. And so what we did is we began meeting in a book study. And our book study was around Change the Culture, Change the Game. And that included, or it helped us to think about the experiences that we wanted to have, that we believed would change beliefs and actions and give us new results. And it was a year-long book study. Actually, it went into a second year even, in order for us to develop some experiences around this. One of the experiences we decided upon, and our superintendents and our board of directors helped us to do this work, is that we wanted to recognize the work that our individual schools were doing with inclusive practices. And as a result, we developed something called the East Valley SELPA Ribbon of Inclusion. And this is a ribbon that we are able to award to our schools at different levels of inclusion implementation to recognize their work, to honor their work, and to encourage even more work in inclusive practices. And as a result, our board of directors, our group of superintendents, approved this process and engaged in it and got excited by it. And we have been able to recognize schools over the last couple of years, and we've continued to do so. And so the journey continued outside of COVID and into individual schools and maybe individual districts doing some really great work. But what we found in 23-24 is that we were hitting a crossroads. And that crossroads is really reflected in sort of pockets of good work, but also maybe some resistance, maybe some roadblocks even, that we weren't necessarily aware of and didn't know how to move past without taking a deep dive into what we were doing across the SELPA. And by doing so, we recognized that we hadn't engaged all the necessary partners in this work. You know, we had worked with some leaders, we had worked with some specific schools, but we hadn't brought in all of the important voices. For example, we hadn't brought in elected board officials in our school districts. We hadn't brought in a lot of parent voice. We hadn't brought in union leadership. And so we decided that it really was time to have all of us who work within the SELPA on this important journey come together and understand what inclusion is and understand what we wanted to do as a result. And so this is where really what we're going to share with you today began and how we believe we've changed hearts and minds around inclusion. What we did as we move forward with the next slide is we developed a series of summits. And so these summits, fortunately, were funded by the grant. So again, a big shout out and a thanks to our SIP team for helping us with this. The summits were designed to bring all of our partners together to do this work and to understand this work. And we actually continued our work around experiences, beliefs, and actions, but we identified that because we hadn't brought everyone together and everyone hadn't been involved in the book study, we maybe didn't even have a common understanding of what our beliefs were, that we had jumped to experiences in pockets of schools without coming together and forming common beliefs. And so our first summit was around that. And we had a very motivational keynote speaker, and you can see her pictured here, Alicia Anderson, who spoke about her personal journey of being included and not being included, and how those experiences and beliefs formed her life experiences. We also felt that it was really important to take our summits away from the school setting and put them in a neutral and really pleasant location where we could come together and do this work and maybe not be interrupted. And I think that was really a good decision on our part. And so you have a sense from me of how our journey began and where our journey then landed with our first summit. And what we're going to do as we move forward is share with you from other voices their experiences in the summer. But before we do that, the first summit was held May 1st of 2024, so about a year ago. And in that summit, we did some really hard work, honestly. In advance of that, we had a survey of everyone who was going to participate in the summit to identify what were some of these roadblocks, what was preventing us from moving forward. And from that, we identified basically 5 significant roadblocks and decided to turn those into what we wanted, what we believed could happen. And through this process, working across our districts, but within the entire SELPA, we call it cross-pollinating with our districts, we developed these 3 cultural beliefs. So in the East Valley SELPA, we believe that all are in, that all have a right to be in. We believe that by using tools of empowerment, we can change hearts and minds, and that by reimagining the use of our resources, it will allow us to do so. And so what I'm going to do today is take you through hearing from these important voices who participated in our summits so that they can share with you their experiences and the results in their districts because they've attended the summits. So first, we're going to start with one of our parents who attended the first summit. And this will provide you with a parent perspective on developing these cultural beliefs. You're going to hear from Ms. Gina Gondolfi. So Gina, thank you for your commitment to and participation in the East Valley SELPA Inclusion Summits. You know, as a parent representative and a representative of the school community, particularly your school community in Redlands, which is our largest K-12 district in the East Valley SELPA. As a parent of a student with disabilities, you have championed inclusive practices for your child and for others. You have a true heart, mind for inclusion. So during the first summit, you engaged in the activity to identify these cultural beliefs for all of the SELPA. What was that experience like for you? And what was it like participating as a parent with so many different school partners? Gina.
Yeah, first of all, Patty Metheny, I just want to thank you for even just including me on this panel. And then Patty Buckmiller, who was at the time our Director of Special Services, and now she's our Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services. I want to thank you, Patty, for just including us as board members of our Redlands Special Ed PTA as being a voice at this summit. To us, it just shows your guys' commitment for having that collaborative partnership between the district and SELPA and parents. So for me, this was super, super exciting because as a parent, as Patty mentioned, I've been championing inclusive practices for 8 years for my son. And so we have a son who's in 4th grade, he has Down syndrome. and he has been included in general education, fully included with supports and services since TK. But traditionally, this isn't the norm for a student with an intellectual disability. Traditionally, they are segregated in a special ed class because just well-meaning people believe that is the best way to educate them. But we know with all the research that's coming out that our students with disabilities are best educated alongside their non-disabled peers. But the only reason we operate in the old way because that is the current belief system, the current belief system of the education system. But in order to change that, we have to change our belief system, right? We have to create a culture and a mindset for inclusion. And for me, prior to that, that was the missing piece is, I was able to make an impact maybe at one school for one teacher, but not district-wide. And so I was so excited that this first summit was doing exactly that. We're forming new cultural beliefs about how we see our students with disabilities, what we can expect for them, having high expectations, and that true belief that they should be included with our non-disabled students as well, and the benefits for both. And then having all the parties there, that was huge because, right, it was everybody from our SELPA, but it was the leadership, right? The people in our districts and in our SELPA that actually make the decisions for change. So finally, I was in a room with the right people in the room. And so it was just very cool to see that this one day was going to create a ripple effect of systemic change around how we view and how we educate our students with disabilities. And I'm just super excited to see where it goes from here.
Thank you, Gina. And when you said you were in the room with the right people, you were one of those right people. And we really appreciate your participation and your ongoing participation to help us to realize this vision.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And Gina mentioned Patty Buckmiller. So I actually have my next question for Patty Buckmiller. Patty was a special education administrator when she began this journey with us and is now an assistant superintendent for educational services. We like to think here in the SELPA world that we helped to elevate Patty to that position. So we're very proud of Patty. Because you were a special education administrator and are now the assistant superintendent for the school district, a school district with a strong parent voice, how have your experiences with the SELPA's Inclusive Initiative and your participation in the summits influenced your leadership and decision-making? And what specific leadership actions have you taken as a result?
All right, thanks, Patty. Actually, I was part of SIP from the beginning, even as a general education elementary principal before I became a special ed administrator. So that was really cool to be at it from the ground level. Our initial goal was to take what we learned at the first summit and to really use it to define inclusion for Redlands. And that was something, we wanted a common language for inclusion, something our parents have been asking for and our staff members for quite some time. So I began this school year as a special ed director, like you mentioned. Initially, my lens was really focused on inclusion. But as I transitioned to my role as assistant superv ed services, this became like so much more. It quickly became apparent when we brought all of the boots on the ground people, our teachers on assignment, our program specialists, our directors, it really became apparent that we didn't even know each other's names. And so what we initially thought was going to be a recreation of the East Valley SELPA Inclusion Summit, like in a one-day thing, ended up being 5 different days spread out throughout the year because this was not quick and easy work. It really took us diving into our personal beliefs and where we wanted to take the whole Ed Services department as a whole. So it really morphed from just looking at inclusion to really our core values for our entire department. And then we also learned that we were sending a lot of mixed messages to our general education teachers, to our special education teachers, because we all didn't have a common language and a common belief system, really. And so there were like teachers that were told, oh, I can't help you because you're a gen ed teacher, or a TOA would say, I can't help you because you're a special ed teacher. So a huge outcome of this whole thing has been removing the silos and having all of our work be all of our work because all of our students are all of our students and all of our teachers are all of our teachers. So a huge result from this has been making sure that our special ed teachers have the right curriculum and the right training to support all students. So that's been a huge outcome. And then we've been working on our core values, just like Patty had shown for the SELPA. We are really close to refining those. And like I said, it hasn't been a one and done. It's been a year-long process getting to that. But we're using those core values as a guiding principle for us moving forward and all the decisions that we make as a department, really. So in case you're curious about what they are, I'm just going to shout them out. We have Mindset Matters, that mindset and belief system is so important. We have Reimagining Resources, which we borrowed after great debate from our SELPA, and that's fine because that's part of it. And then to work on systems, we came up with Empower and Apply. So really proud of my team, and just also, like Gina said, excited to see what the future brings. Thanks, Patty.
Thank you, Patty. And I loved your focus on the teachers and what teachers need in respect to training and support, because it's really the teachers that do this work. And so a critically important voice for us in the summits has been teacher union leadership. And I'm happy to share that from one of our districts, Yucaipa-Calamasa, actually a longtime friend, a union leader, was participating with us in May and is here today, and that's Tom Heron. So Tom, when you participated in the East Valley SELPA Inclusion Summit, you were the CTA president for the district. You are looked to for guidance from all educators, general and special education teachers. What about the summit provided you with a new perspective on inclusion? And how did participating in the summit change you?
Yes, it definitely was a case of having all the right people in the same room together and being able to talk candidly with people from other districts about the successes and not just hear the cherry pick stuff, but really hear how full inclusion really leads to a better outcome for all of our students. When I came to this summit, I was, I would have to say a good portion of my job was dealing with the negative attitudes and misconceptions about special ed that I was experiencing. It was, at least a couple days a week, I was getting lengthy phone calls with someone worried that inclusion would cause them to have to lower their academic standards or would be unfair to the general education students. And I knew that wasn't the case, but really being able to talk to people, be able to see it working at all levels, seeing that, there's something that really hit me was that seeing how much the general education students benefited from it, how they developed much greater empathy towards others, but also really seeing how full inclusion can heighten the academic success for all students and the expectations. And it's really together, very much feeling of together you're stronger. I've seen it work really well at my site this year. I have 4 ED students that are fully included into my history classes. And I'm looking forward to next year actually to hopefully co-teaching one of those classes with one of the ED teachers and really breaking down those barriers. There's still some logistical issues that we're working out, such as the special ed students are on a totally different academic calendar than the other students, but really hoping to work around those things. And again, for me, it's been a really positive experience, and it gave me the ability when people came to me with concerns. Again, it's like, okay, have you really informed yourself what this is, or are you basing it off of hearsay? And I really have to say it was a great experience.
Thank you for sharing, Tom. And you talked about systems and still having some things that you need to adjust, and that's the reality of the work we do. And I recognize that even as we began to plan the summits. And so one of the first things I do, and you'll hear a little bit more later on about the planning, and one of the first things I did was work with our group of superintendents, which is our board of directors. We in the East Valley SELPA, I have an amazing group of superintendents on this board. And I was able to speak with each of them individually and talk to them about the passion and the work we want to engage in around inclusion. And every one of them were supportive. And so today I'm happy to share that you're going to hear from two of those superintendents and their reactions to participating in the summits. First, you're going to hear from Dr. Frank Miranda. Dr. Miranda is the superintendent of Colton Joint Unified. I'm so happy to have Dr. Miranda here. Dr. Miranda, you are the superintendent of a vibrant, urban, multicultural school district, one of the largest in the East Valley SELPA. And with that comes many challenges. Fortunately, I've had the pleasure of working alongside you through many years as we have worn different hats together. And throughout, I have known you to have a heart for students with disabilities. So what about the East Valley SELPA Inclusion Summits expanded your thinking and leading in this work on inclusion? And how has the experience impacted your leadership?
Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Metheny, Patty, for those kind words and really the opportunity to reflect on just an incredible experience at the summit. And just thank you for your leadership to the East Valley SELPA. We really appreciate it. Participating in the SELPA Inclusion Summit, I truly was not only inspiring, but also deeply affirming. And I've shared with you my background. I was a former behavioral specialist for Rolling Unified School District a while back, and I got to experience it with students and their families and students and teachers and educators and the difference that we make. And now serving as a superintendent of a diverse, really, like you mentioned, multicultural district. I'm constantly focused, and I say we, let me just say that we are constantly focused on equity in our district. When we say all means all, ALLL, capital ALL. And so I think the summit, what it did for me, reminded me what true inclusion is. I think there's a misunderstanding of what that means. And really the definition is not just about access. And our director, Rob Pearson, we talk about this all the time. It's about belonging and making sure that every student feels that they belong and they're part of the educational, not just the system, but truly, honestly, just that they feel also honored and loved and treated with respect in the families. So listening to the stories and working with the team and the keynote speaker, all the educators and all the folks, the union leadership, the other board members, just helped me and really honestly just challenged me to examine how we define success for all our learners in our school district, especially those with disabilities. So what it really made me think about is, and really I was intentional about this, is when I went back to my school district, I made it a priority to go visit our special ed classrooms and go visit every single one of them and see the work that's being done and talking to students, talking to parents, talking to teachers. And that just honestly just changed me and changed my life dramatically.
Wow.
So when we include students in the conversation, uh, we want them to thrive both academically and socially. We need to hear from them. We need to hear from the families. So it really enforced for me the idea of how inclusion benefits everyone, not just students with disabilities, but the parents. They're part of it. Also, educators, teachers today have so many things on their plates, and when you go in this classroom and you see what they're having and their heart for kids, it's unbelievable. It changes everybody's life. So I left the summit with a renewed sense of urgency to break down those systemic barriers that still exist in our schools and provide more professional development for our teachers. For example, universal design for learning is a big one in our district, and just trying to make our schools settings, our general education settings, more responsive and truly welcoming for our students with disabilities. So, and last, I'll just say from a leadership standpoint, it has elevated my responsibility to be more visible and take action and be an advocate for these inclusive practices. And so that's across all levels of our organization. And our vision is, includes equity, as I mentioned. It's about its student achievement, equity, and wellness. And that includes our students with disability. And so we're going to continue to work on that and change the mindset that and so it has really re-energized my commitment to build these systems and recognize that these students, we need to treat them with dignity, and they have a tremendous amount of potential, and they should be celebrated for their successes, as the families, as the parents, as the educators, for the work that they're doing.
Frank, you're a remarkable leader. And I'm humbled, and we're all humbled that our summits can have any influence in your leadership. Thank you for being so remarkable. We also, from Colton, had a board member that brought such enthusiasm and joy to our day. And I'm just so pleased that he agreed to participate with us today and share his reaction to participating in the summits. And that is Israel Fuentes. Mr. Fuentes.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. As a board member of one of our largest K-2 unified, K-12 unified districts, Colton Joint Unified, what was your experience in engaging in this first summit? And how did the experience change your thinking about inclusion?
You know, Patty, the first was when Lisa Anderson came up.
Yeah.
And when she shared her testimony, I kept thinking to myself, you know, we do need to make some changes. We need to look at it very extensively. You know, sat down with Dr. Miranda, and you know, Dr. Miranda has already expressed what he brought to the table. But as a board member, being able to see the reality of what's going on in our schools and what we need to do better. You know, I remember one of the slides she brought, and it said about fixing. A lot of people want to fix things.
Yes.
They want to fix these students. But we're not here to fix them. We're here to help them. We're here to empower them. We're here to change their lives. You know, a lot of times, I don't know if many of you know, but I do have a disability. A few years ago, I was injured. I was hurt, broke my ankle, broke my fibula, lost all my cartilage. Doctor said I was going to walk with a walker for the rest of my life, a cane, and and everybody wanted to fix me and wanted to do this, but I remember there was someone that always told me, you can do it, Izzy. You don't need this. Let me help you. Let me mentor you. And so, and I love my wife for that, because my wife was the one who did that.
She was the one.
She was the one. And a lot of times our teachers are the ones that are going to mentor and empower these students to succeed. It doesn't matter if they have Down syndrome, they're a special needs student in a wheelchair and a crutch. Alicia brought this to me, and it changed me. It changed me in a way that I think working together with our teachers, our programs, working with the superintendent, working together, we can make a difference in these lives. Yesterday, I was sitting in my office, and I had this little bamboo plant, and I don't know if you guys can see it here. I'm gonna try to see if I can bring it in. Here, I'll put it in front of me. And I was looking at it, and I noticed that some leaves were green, some weren't green, and it was a little dry. A lot of times what we need to do is, for example, to be able to help this little plant, it's probably going to cover, there we go, help this little bamboo tree grow, is I'm going to need to water it, give it some love, talk to it, mentor it, because I like talking to my plants, you know. And what's going to happen is we're going to have this beautiful, beautiful tree come out. And when we see it, we know that we did something right to that tree. To our students, we're going to be able to do that, to empower these students, to give them just words of encouragement. But the best thing we can do is to include them in everything that we do in our districts.
That
everything.
is the answer. Yeah.
The inclusion part of it. You know, inclusion means ensuring all students, including those with disabilities, and those that, even those that have issues with language and all of that, our ELD students, all of that, to include them so that they can succeed and grow to become those beautiful trees.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Fuentes. What a beautiful analogy. So powerful. And I think you can all get a sense of the joy and enthusiasm Mr. Fuentes brought to our summit.
If I may say real quick, Patty, if you're a board member and you're listening to this, I encourage you as a board member, as an elected official, please participate in these summits, participate in any cohort that your district has where we can talk about inclusion, where we can talk about how we can do better for our students with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So appreciated. We have one last voice from Colton Joint Unified, and that is the Director of Special Education, and Mr. Pearson. So Mr. Pearson, because you are the Special Education Administrator for this vibrant urban multicultural school district, how has the summit experience helped you to work with all district partners to advance inclusive practices and not have those partners see it as just a special education initiative?
Yes, so good morning, everyone. Thank you, Patty, for your leadership in the SELPA. I'm proud to be a member district of our SELPA. I'm also proud to be an amazing leader with amazing district, Colton, Dr. Miranda in Israel. Thank you for your words. So I've early on, Patty had mentioned we had a smaller group within the SELPA meet as a SIP team, we called it. And we read a book, Change the Culture, Change the Game. And I truly believe that's the foundation of cultivating inclusive practices. And so Dr. Miranda talked about the fact that Colton has a very robust vision. We have a design plan, and we have a pillar for equity that calls out action items. But also in our vision, we state that all students get what they need when they need it. And that's a bold statement. That's a call to action. And so how do we create inclusive practices in a district and not make it a special ed initiative? And because it's not. I always say to my team, I have an amazing leadership team, that inclusion is not a program, it's a mindset. So coming out of the East Valley SELPA SIP Summit, we struggled with how do we cultivate inclusive practices across the district? How do we kind of change the hearts and minds of people, change the culture? How do we change the game, right? And really, again, it's about cultivating that belonging and identity. We had a task force group that was more focused on process and procedures, as we always are in special ed, even in gen ed, looking at compliance. And after the SIP Summit, we took the opportunity, the energy, the positive energy, and that idea that we're going to create a sense of belonging and identity and use that team as the vehicle. The team is made up of representatives from general education. We have special education representatives. We have district leaders, district support staff, program specialists. We have some itinerant staff. We also have some parents on that team. We have site administrators on that team. So it's a broad coalition of folks. And we had that team. And so that was that vehicle of cultivating the mindset across stakeholder groups. We have since shifted the focus of that team to looking at how we cultivate innovative practices and inclusive practices. We've been fortunate to have the amazing Kevin Schaefer, Carmen Hopkins, Jessica Mayorka come out to that team in the last 6 months. We did a deep dive in ableist thinking and kind of thinking about our own ableist mindset and counteracting that in how that translates into the classroom and supporting students. We worked on allyship, and we're again looking at identity. Out of that, there was 2 sessions at this point. We created 3 cultural beliefs, just like the SELPA did. Those aren't yet ready for publishing, but we have those, and the team did some good work. And one last thing before I leave, again, this is how we worked and cultivated things so that inclusive practice is not a special ed thing, right? It is an all of us thing. It is an every department thing within districts. It is an every classroom thing. It's about that belonging. And I think it was our first meeting, we had a teacher, gen ed teacher, kindergarten teacher, who's also a parent. And she shared movingly with tears, I'll have to say, and we all were moved by what she said. And she talked about her own child and wanting certain things from a traditional kind of model of special education. And she realized that maybe that thinking wasn't the most inclusive type of thinking. She also reflected on her own practices as a teacher and was honest and courageous and said, you know what, maybe some of the things I was doing weren't so inclusive, right? And we're all guilty in the system, right? In a sense, and I don't know if guilty is the right word, but she came to a sense of realization and aha. And there were several of our folks on the task force. In our second meeting, we have a teacher that has a lot of passion for students. And she said when she leaves this meeting, she gets better. And when she goes back to her classroom, she reflects on her practices. And that's mindset changing right in front of
That's
your eyes.
right.
So
That's
that was the
exactly right.
value of that, and the value of the SIP Summit kind of encouraging my team to go forward.
Great.
So again, thank you very much, and thank you to Dr. Metheny and our SIP team.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Pearson. So I'm sure you're getting a sense of just how invigorating that first summit was, but we knew we couldn't just stop there. There was a lot of work still to be done. And we moved into a second summit. And you may notice that we're all dressed in the same shirts. We have them on today. There are United in Inclusion shirts. So we as adults are practicing what we are preaching. Yes, I see Israel held his up. So we've spent a lot of time on the first summit. We have a little less time for the second summit, but we want you to hear about that as well. And so first you're going to hear from our school district in our mountain community. And one of our board members from our mountain community has participated in our summits and has just been a real rock of, this is what I want to do, I believe, and I'm here to make a difference. And that's Dr. William Mellinger, who's actually participating with us today from Florida. So we're so thankful for you doing that. Dr. Mellinger, you are a highly valued community member and an elected board official, obviously in our mountain district. What have you taken from your experiences in the summits? How have the experiences influenced your thinking around policy setting and decision-making for the school district?
I've just got to be frank. One of the reasons why I was willing to attend the summits was probably my own feelings of skepticism. As a board member, I'm probably troubled when anything is forced upon us. From the outside, if you will, from the state or whomever, federal, whoever it might be. And in fact, if I was really being frank with you, it wouldn't just be skepticism, it was resistance. And some of what the summit has done was help me realize even that's some of the challenge as we're going to do anything, not just on inclusion, but anything that's going to be a real direction change in a district. It's going to take everybody participating. And the fact is that you're going to have skepticism, you're going to have resistance, you're going to have people not wanting to participate, coming up with all the reasons not to, which was interesting because that's what we learned about, was how that was a part of the process. I appreciated, especially from the second summit, the fact that we were starting to see students, and especially when we saw the UC Davis students, and they actually did the presentation. I said, yes, this is what inclusion should be. And inclusion should be something that includes all of us. If you're not talking about the board, you haven't included everybody. If you're not talking with parents, you haven't included everybody. If you're not talking to the students and listening to them, you haven't included everybody. So inclusion has to have, and really any major policy change of a board has got to take the thinking and the looking at all of the constituents that are involved. And I so appreciate the fact that our SELPA really said, let's back up, let's look at that, let's consider the different common beliefs that we have. And our team then has come back from those meetings and actually put together plans for common beliefs, the mission statement. Eventually, that's going to come to the board. Well, by my participation, I've been able to see the process, challenge the process, even question the process,
That's great.
even ahead of time. I guess I need to say, I'm a board member who's committed to us staying in our lane. My responsibility as a board member is not to deal with the how. Even though I've been involved in education, been a guidance counselor in a high school, my responsibility is to oversee the what. What are we doing? The how has to come from the professional educators. But this is one of those times that I think the how has to go beyond the professional educators, and it has to involve everybody. So when we talk about being all in, it really means that everyone is being included in the conversation, in the decision making, in the discussions, not just the board. Well, that has us, we have a significant role, but everybody's participating. I so appreciate our Director of Education Services and Jen Whiteside and the way she works with a team, and how that team came back and worked at things after going through the summits, and during the summits you could see the work already happening. So it's really been a rewarding experience, and I think it's really important that everyone participate in that process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mellinger. And you mentioned Jennifer Whiteside, and she's with us now to share about just how she's made this happen in the district. So Jennifer, as a district education administrator at the district level, and one responsible for the LCAP development, what about the summits has made your work more partnership focused? What specific actions have you taken?
Right. Well, good morning or good afternoon, and thank you, Dr. Mellinger, for joining us and for the opportunity to be part of this wonderful, wonderful work. It is so important that, as we keep saying, that we are all in, right? And we're part of that process. So I do want to thank Dr. Metheny and SELPA and our SIP team who have partnered with us, right? Who have allied with us on our journey through inclusion to really make it meaningful. And like we're hearing as a theme across these presentations today, how we're including teachers, how we're including parents, how we're including board members, how we're including instructional aides, how we are including the student voice. And something that's so important for the LCAP is that all of those voices are included in terms of our educational partner meetings that we have. And one of the real highlights of being able to develop the LCAP is the student focus group, and being able to talk to students about what their experience is and how we can best support them and be intentional in our efforts. And so after participating in the summits and having that modeled and being part of the summit where we built the reimagining resources, the all-in, the tools for empowerment in terms of the cultural beliefs, we were really able to take that back to our district and partner with SELPA and SIP to develop a Rim of the World Unified Cultural Beliefs workshop. And so in that workshop, we were able to look at some of the beliefs or thoughts or maybe sometimes some of the challenges that exist in our culture to say, what is it we do want to focus on, and how do we now take this at a district level? And so as you see on the slide today, that's a screenshot of our core beliefs in Rim of the World. And we really thought we needed to focus on impactful actions and how those actions permeate across our entire district. Aligning actions, which is so important with the LCAP, right? So from your LCAP to your single plans for student achievement at the school level, your leadership team meetings, your departments, your grade levels, your instructional aides, that we all are a collective leadership to make inclusion happen in our district. And then our third one, which is future focused, right? We look at how we're supporting kids today, but we're also looking at how we're supporting kids in the future and how we're developing systems for inclusion that really makes it meaningful. And so from having the participation in the summits and doing a Rim of the World workshop, we were able to invite our SIP partners, and Carmen Hopkins participated in one of our professional development days and presented with our teams, where we spoke voice of the student, but we also honored our teachers, right? Because as new things come, right, or things change, or maybe we're looking at, old beliefs and thinking of how we change the culture and create new beliefs through those type 1 experiences so that we can create new actions and supports. We want to start by highlighting the great work our teachers are already doing. And so in that PD day where Carmen was with us, we highlighted teachers for emulating one of those 3 cultural beliefs that we developed as a district. And from there, our teachers were asking for more. They say, how do we take this and do more and bring our team together? So we created an inclusion steering Steering Committee, where we again emulated the process from the summit of building cultural beliefs for our Inclusion Steering Committee. And what they found in some of those beliefs, and as Dr. Mellinger shared, some kind of different perspectives on what is inclusion and how do I implement that, and what about reimagining resources when you're a small district, and how do we make those resources the most intentional? And so having some of those conversations aren't always easy, but the people came to the table and even shared at the board meeting the very same night that we had our first Inclusion Steering meeting, having our union leadership share in their RTA update for the evening how powerful the Inclusion Steering Committee was and how it helped to bring together elementary, middle, high school, continuation, right? So that we can look at all the ways that we support our students and that we are inclusive. And it was just a really powerful experience because our culture is one, I'm sure in all of our districts, that is strong. And we want that culture to grow and to foster inclusion. And so we just really appreciate the opportunity to be part of the summits and to emulate what was modeled for us and to develop that in, as we like to say, in our rim way, right? On the mountain and really make it meaningful for our families. But further, I just in short want to share that I have the benefit and privilege, I think honor, right, to be in Ed Services and support our district. But I'm also a mom and a mom of a student who receives special services in our district. And so I love hearing from parents. Thank you, Gina, for speaking on behalf of Redlands. I love hearing parents because for every student who receives services, there's a mama there, there's a dad there, there's an aunt, an uncle, a grandma, a grandpa who is so proud of their child and wants to see them be included and be part of that. And so I think that, at RIM, we're excited to share the work we've been doing and the partnership that we've been fortunate to be part of, and how we are really making that meaningful in fostering a positive culture. It really means a lot to us, and we really do put the heart into all of it, as you heard from Dr. Mellinger, and if you've been able to work with one of our teams, like our teams really put their hearts out there for all of this work and really believe in this cultural shift. So thank you again to the team, and we appreciate it from Room of the World.
Thank you, Jennifer. Very much appreciate it. We have two more important people to hear from. And you talked about the heart, and the heart is at the school level, right? And so we have a principal with us who's actually a recipient of one of our East Valley SELPA Ribbon of Inclusions, and that's Miss Carolyn Ed.D. You are the site principal of a dynamic middle school in one of the SELPA's largest urban multicultural districts, and that's Rialto Unified. Through your leadership, the school has been transformed into a model of how inclusive practices should work, and you are a recipient of our ribbon. How did your participation in our summits confirm your leadership decisions, particularly when you were met with challenges? And what about rightful presence speaks to you in your role as a school principal? Carol.
Well, there have been, thank you so much for having me join this wonderful group of professionals who are like-minded on providing students every opportunity they can have. I'm grateful for the opportunity and, for also having received the ribbon of inclusion. We've had a long road coming from when I first got to JHU with 3 self-contained SDC classes and every special ed teacher having a study skills class to now we don't have any study skills classes and we will only have 1 self-contained SDC, which will be minimally populated because we're pushing all of our students in. And so my participation in the summit has confirmed various things, systems and processes we have put in place over the years to support that work. For example, building a master schedule should be designed with student needs in mind first. And so I start with special ed. How are we going to create a system to give every student an opportunity to be supported in various content classes? And by doing that, with taking our education specialists and strategically placing them into other classes where they support, such as in social studies or science, where they may not or usually do not support, or even in an elective or two, scheduling that and providing the supports to be in place so that it allows all of our students to move into those spaces and have the support, because special education is not a place, it's a service, and the service needs to go where the students are so that they can access extracurricular activities and academic activities. In thinking about rightful place, I thought back in the 1930s, people with Down syndrome had an average life expectancy of 9 years old, and usually they were institutionalized shortly after birth. My Uncle Alan was born in the 30s on a South Dakota farm, the fifth child of poor Norwegian parents. Uncle Alan, lived into his 50s because he was not institutionalized. He was not segregated. He was kept in the home, in a loving home with support, and taught to his highest ability. And so I think of that family value, that work. Listening also to Gina earlier with her child who has Down syndrome. These situations are just people with different abilities.
Right.
And we need to support them however we need to, because any one of us at any given time may have a challenge. For example, I'm going to stand up a little bit. You can see on my arm, I have a Sarmiento brace. I broke my arm.
Just before our last summit.
So yes, so this is just it's a short-term disability. However, I have different needs. It gives me, at this moment, a better understanding, a little more sympathy. And I love what some people said earlier in that, inclusion or equity, it's not a special ed thing. It's a people thing.
That's right.
And teaching everybody and giving them experiences that are supportive, like my Uncle Alan, giving him the opportunity to participate in everything possible, just like this young man at our 5th grade moving on up activity with the Jaguar. Here he's able to interact with our mascot, knowing that he will be able to come to a school next year that includes him and recognizes his value. I think those are all things that I have heard echoed from all the speakers today, and keeping that at the forefront as we work together is very important.
Thank you, Carolyn. You say it's a people thing. It is a people thing. And our last voice is from a tremendous leader in this region. Callie Binks is the superintendent of Yucaipa-Calimesa. Callie leads with heart and soul and mind, and has been an ally in this work from the beginning. Callie, let me address you. You have served as a superintendent for more than 15 years, with the past 11 plus years serving in a suburban, close-knit community in a one high school district that feels like that small Midwestern town that Carolyn described. Sometimes those communities are a little less open to including others. Your experience, insight, and wisdom are qualities that are highly valued throughout the region, most especially your relational skills. You work from the heart. How did our summits allow your heart to grow even bigger as you learned about allyship, and how has that impacted your leadership?
Well, thank you, Dr. Metheny. Patty, who actually came from my district. I'm very blessed to have her also get to work with us in our East Valley SELPA. And I am just honored to wrap up all the things. I'm so proud of our East Valley SELPA. And every district is moving forward for the benefit of students and has worked together so diligently, board members, my union presidents. It's just been amazing. They've been able to attend both classified and certificated, because as we know it, you know, when we're doing this work, it's deep work and it needs to be something that we all take to heart. And Patty, you talked about the heart, and at our November SELPA Inclusion Summit, I was so inspired, and Dr. Mellinger referenced the UC Davis, the Redwood Seed Program, and the students that came to present there. And I have to say, as a former gen ed teacher, and then also a teacher who worked with students with special needs, I've not been this ignited, like on fire before. And that's kind of sad to say, but in looking at inclusion, it is the work of the heart, because watching these students be able to stand up and share with us the amazing things that they were doing, it set me back on my heels, and it broke my heart, because I felt like, oh my gosh, where is my fire? What have I been doing? And so as we have gone into this inclusion work, we call it inclusion work, and we do need to be the allies, but it made me sad that it's taken this long in the process for our whole country, for the world, just, you know, that where we're getting to a place, but we're doing the work, and that's the important part. These Inclusion Summit, the Inclusion Summit students that came from UC Davis, one was an author and proudly signed the book that she had written. And we stood in line for her like we were at a rock concert, and she was a rock star. And so those things, if those don't fill your heart, I don't know what would. And as we've worked through the passion of what we need to do for our students, we bring along those that don't understand. And that's work of the heart as well, because not everybody has the chance to sit in the summit and be pumped up, just like we were at our summit. We had a student that shared about working we had a video that showed her working in a dog grooming place, and where she was just so excited and the smile on her face. And so for me, it ignited a fire in me to challenge what we aren't doing. It was more about what can we do? And so the question then to our classified and certificated team members and our administrators, it's not about what we can't do, because often we put up our own roadblocks, but it is what can we do and what feels good in our hearts, what is needed for our students to feel included. So moving to a vision of the heart work and knowing that our students are just ready to do more, and what is it that we can do. So seeing the Little Seeds has on their website, because I scoured it after we left, and I was looking for very particular things. They want to see victories and breakthroughs and aha moments every day. They want to see the joy of the students with compassion and friendship, and then the problem solving and all those things. And so for us, two things that we have done with action items for that is it sent me back to our neighborhood community college, Crafton Hills, and said, what are we not doing? Not what can we do, but what are we not doing, and why are we not doing it? And so that conversation has put this piece in motion that is going to benefit our students. And then what is the hard thing to do? Change. But we're doing it. And so taking a program and moving it to a different campus that actually provides more options for our students. And just met with the parents last night, and change is hard, but we're doing it because it's the right change to do. And we want to fill their hearts by having everyone get to see the joy that these UC Davis students brought to our summit. And again, wrapping up, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Metheny and her entire team for their leadership, and all of our colleagues that have been in this journey with us, because we are learning from each other every time we get together. So thank you. And for those that are attending, we are an open book. If you want to hear everything that we're doing and that our SELPA is doing, all you need to do is call, because we'll partner.
That's exactly right. Oh, thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you to all of you. And to leave a last thought about the seeds, right? Just planting a seed to make a change is really where we began. And so I'm going to just end with having Jennifer Brooksby, our amazing East Valley SELPA program manager, talk to you a little bit about the seeds, the planning, the nuts and bolts that we had to do in case any of you want to replicate our summits. Jennifer.
We'll be really brief. So in planning for our summits, we decided that we wanted to select an off-site location that would really reduce the distractions that we experience when we try and do it on a school campus. The location we have is beautiful and it's very conducive to professional conversations and really serves to kind of elevate the experience and create a conference-like feel. We utilized our SIP grant to cover some of our expenses, or all of the expenses, like paying for subs, the food, the cost of the speakers, and the books and materials that we utilize throughout our activities. And we're very fortunate that our venue only charges for catering. Our goal was to create this beautiful experience that would change the hearts and minds to teach everyone how to become an ally in this inclusion journey. Patty, we just finished our 3rd summit last week, and we are looking forward to another one in November.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, those of you who have participated and joined us. I think you can tell that hearts and minds have been changed and that we're invigorated to do this work, and we will continue doing so. Like Callie said, you can reach out to any one of us. We're all here to partner and work together. We want to be the examples of inclusion. We adults want to be those models, and I think our summits allow us to do that.